Did I lock the door? I don't know. I don't think I did. No, I know I did, definitely. But what if I didn't? No! Not today, Oscar. Not today. Hi, my name is Mikayla Davic, and the people who know me might classify me as smart, or nice, or a drama geek. And this is all true, don't get me wrong. But I feel that most of the people who know me don't really know the real me. One of the most influential aspects of my life is something I have only told in the exclusive confidence of my closest friends and family, until now. Earlier, I mentioned the name Oscar. And no, Oscar is not a person. Oscar is my OCD. OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder, is a sickness of the mind based on obsessions and compulsions. What I acted out at the beginning of my talk used to happen every day for some time when I was younger. When I was in 2nd grade, my mom started to notice that I started to act out of the ordinary and began to develop little habits, and she thought that maybe I had OCD. She bought me a book that was geared towards children with mental instabilities, and she sat me down to read it. This was her way to test me, to see how I would react to the words she was saying. What was my reaction? An overwhelming feeling rushed over me, followed by vomit, and ultimately a flood of tears. I told my mom everything that was going on in my head, crying until my eyes went dry. I thought she would look at me like I was an alien, or reprimand me for the thoughts going through my head, but she didn't. She pulled me into a big hug and told me that everything was going to be okay and that we were going to get through this together. Now, enough about me. I'm here to share my story, but also to help others begin theirs. There are so many people in the world who have OCD and other mental illnesses, but there's a barrier that is preventing them from accepting this for themselves and getting the help they need. I want to help these kids and people, and also to help them begin their stories. The first step to getting the help you need starts with you. You can't expect someone to fix a problem that you can't even admit that you have. And it's important to know that the issue is not you. The fact that what's going on may bother you is enough to know that you have an Oscar of your own working inside of your head to make you miserable. He's just a cowardly bully who wants to break you, and you cannot let him. In life, bullies will tell you that there is something wrong with you, something that you should be ashamed of. And as long as you listen to them and believe that you're the problem, the more that they will bully you. OCD is very similar. Admit that you're not the problem and you're one step closer to defeating the bully once and for all. Once you're able to admit to yourself that something's wrong, you must find someone that you trust to confide in. While you must be your biggest advocate, mental illness is something that should never be handled alone. And no matter how much you think you don't need it, therapy is always a great option. I've gone to a therapist for years, ever since I found out that I had OCD. She knows how to help me with my OCD, and she really understands what I'm going through. You don't have to be extremely disturbed to go to a therapist. Everyone could benefit from it. Also, medicine can really help. I've taken medicine for 2 years. You would take medicine for a cold, so why wouldn't you take medicine for another type of illness? The medicine is there to help you as a form of guidance, and once you feel strong enough, you can live a life without it. I'm proud to say that after 2 years, I'm finally in the process of weaning off of my medicine because of all the progress I have made. Now that I've covered the basics of treatment of a mental illness such as OCD, there's also talk about learning to accept this new aspect of your life. I named my OCD for a pretty important reason. I didn't know it at the time, but when my therapist told me to name my internal monster, she was teaching me a valuable lesson. In using the name Oscar, I'm able to tell him to do and not vice versa. I proved that I control him, and I wouldn't let him control me anymore. It's important to know that you have the power to define your OCD or other mental illnesses, and it in no way defines you. OCD has a definition determined by doctors and scientists. The definition of you is determined by you and no one else. The definition of OCD also states that it can destroy a person's capacity to function at home, work or home, and lead to a comfortable existence. This is true for OCD, but only if you let it be. I didn't let Oscar ruin me. I took all the negative energy that he was aiming at me and I channeled it into something positive, something that I love, writing. I write constantly. It is my go-to stress reliever. No matter what I'm writing, I channel everything I have, all my emotion and energy into that one piece and make it my own, because writing is something that I also can control. I encourage kids to find their own pen and paper, whether it be through art or music or sport. Whatever it is, take all of that energy that you have and channel it into something beneficial to yourself and possibly even the whole world. Now, there's also something that needs to be said for people who are not suffering from a mental illness. You never know what's going on through a person's head. You can't know how a person is suffering without asking them directly. I feel like I hid my OCD pretty well, and a lot of people may be shocked to find out that I have a mental illness because of all that I do. I get good grades, I have great friends, and I run a charitable organization for Make-A-Wish. I never let Oscar get in the way of anything that I did. However, most people just see me as an overachiever or a rule follower. My friends would tease me for being a goody-goody, when little did they know that the reason I always followed the rules was because if I didn't, I would feel guilt beyond control. And when I would tap something for no apparent reason, they didn't stop to think that maybe there was a reason, some type of compulsion that I was having. My friends would send me home in tears. I knew I couldn't tell them what was going on because they wouldn't understand. No one could really understand it, I felt. OCD is a term that many people know, but don't really know. That's another mistake people make, misusing the term. Let's get this straight. OCD is not an adjective. You cannot be so OCD about something like washing your hands. Everyone has minor obsessions and compulsions. It's just human nature. But there's a big difference between liking to have things organized and imagining harmful repercussions if you don't touch that locker 3 times and then have to wash your hands afterwards because who knows what kind of germs you contracted. I found this quote from Canadian Medical Association that states that stigma or discrimination attached to mental illnesses prevents a serious barrier not only to diagnosis and treatment, but also to acceptance in the community. This summarizes perfectly what I want my message to be. If we can get people talking and beginning to understand what OCD really is and why kids are this way, then we're one step closer to breaking that barrier that is preventing the kids from getting the help they need. Because let's face it, the ability of one to accept themselves is widely dependent on how they think they'll be accepted in the community. So if we can get people talking, and we can get people to embrace these kids and their issues, and help them to get the help they need so that they can be the happy, normal kids that they deserve to be, then we're one step closer to making our community that much better. I told myself that when I chose this topic for my TED Talk, that if I could help one person, one single person, stand up for themselves and get the help that they need, I would consider this talk a success. Because yes, I'm here to share my story and prove that there's no shame in my disorder, but I'm also here to show my successful journey as proof that happiness with a mental illness is possible. It is a long and a hard journey, but it is completely worth it to be able to stand here in front of so many people and be vulnerable and say, this is me world, and I have no shame. Every day, I find that Oscar tries to squirm his way back into my life, but I refuse to let him. And every time I push him away, his grasp on me becomes weaker and weaker, so that someday, hopefully, it'll become non-existent. I hope that in 15 years or so, I'll be able to talk about Oscar in a good way, because he'll be in the form of a golden statue given to me in front of millions of people. I can look back on this time in my life and know that I finally defeated the monster once and for all. Thank you.